Hello. Welcome to another episode of Campfire and Fables, associated with our PG Stories project. Sit back and relax. Enjoy watching the campfire while listening to this episode of storytelling, a practice that has been done since man's discovery of fire. In this episode, we introduce another theme to our pulp collection: paranormal mystery. We start with an occult detective story of Jules de Grandin, an athletic, blonde-haired, blue-eyed French physician who is a former member of the French CUT, living Harrisonville, New Jersey, a mysterious town full of supernatural incidents. This cross of Poirot and X-Files was created by one of Weird Tales' monthly regular contributors, Seabury Quinn. Quinn was an American government lawyer, journalist, and magazine author, who published over 500 short stories for 3 decades since 1917. Although he have written many stories, his most criticized work would be the Jules de Grandin series. The first story, The Horror on the Links, was published in Weird Tales magazine, October 1925.
The Horror on the Links by Seabury Quinn. 1. It must have been past midnight when the skirling of my bedroom telephone bell wakened me, for I could see the moon well down toward the western horizon as I looked through the window while reaching for the instrument. "Hello?
Dr. Trowbridge,"
came an excited feminine voice through the receiver.
"can you come right over? Something terrible has happened to Paul."
I answered, half asleep. "What's wrong?"
We don't know.
she replied jerkily.
He's unconscious. You know, he'd been to the dance at the country club with Gladys Phillips. We'd all been in bed hours when we heard someone banging on the front door. Mr. Maitland went down, and when he opened the door, Paul fell into the hall. Oh, doctor, he's been terribly hurt. Won't you please come right over?"
Physician's sleep is like a park, public property. Right, I'll be right over. With a sigh I climbed out of bed and into my clothes, cranked my superannuated motor to life and set out for the Maitland house. Young Maitland lay on his bed, his eyes closed, teeth tight clenched, his face set in an expression of unutterable dread, even in his unconsciousness. Across his shoulders and on the backs of his arms I found several long incised wounds, as though his flesh had been raked by a sharp, pronged instrument. I sterilized and bandaged the cuts, and applied restoratives, wondering what sort of encounter had produced such hurts.
"Help! Help! Oh, God, help!"
the lad muttered thickly, like a person trying to call out in a nightmare.
Oh, it's got me, it's..."
His words gave way to a gurgling, inarticulate cry of fear, and he sat bolt upright in bed, staring about with vacant, fear-filled eyes. "Easy, easy, young fellow," I soothed. "Lie back, now, take it easy, you're all right, you're home in bed." He looked uncomprehendingly at me a moment, then fell to babbling inanely.
The ape thing,
he screamed in a frenzy.
"It's got me. Open the door, for God's sake, open the door."
"Here," I ordered gruffly as I drove my hypodermic into his arm. "None o' that. You quiet down." The opiate took effect almost immediately, and I left him with his parents while I returned to catch up the raveled ends of my interrupted sleep. Headlines shrieked at me from the front page of the paper lying beside my grapefruit at breakfast.
Superfiend sodding girl slang. Body of young woman found near Sedgemoor Country Club, mystifies police. Criminal pervert blamed for killing, arrest is imminent. Almost entirely denuded of clothing, marred by a scare of terrible wounds. Her face battered nearly past recognition and her neck broken. The body of pretty Sarah Humphreys, 19, a waitress in the employ of Sedgemoor Country Club, was found lying in one of the bunkers of the club's golf course by John Burroughs, a greenkeeper, this morning. Miss Humphreys, who'd been employed at the clubhouse for 3 months, completed her duties shortly before midnight and, according to statements of fellow workers, declared she was to take a shortcut across the links to the Andover Road, where she could get a trolley to the city. Her body, terribly mutilated, was found about 25 yards from the road on the golf course this morning. Between the golf links and the Andover Road is a dense growth of trees, and it is thought the young woman was attacked while walking along the path through the woods to the road. Deputy Coroner Nesbitt, who examined the body, gave his opinion that she had been dead about 5 hours when found. She had not been criminally assaulted. Several suspicious characters have been seen in the neighborhood of the club's grounds recently, and the police are checking up on their movements. An early arrest is expected.
There's 2 gentlemen to see ye, sir.
Nora, my housekeeper, interrupted my perusal of the paper.
To Sergeant Costello and a Frenchman or Italian or something. They do be wanting to ask ye some questions about the murder of poor little Humphrey's girl.
Ask me about the murder? I protested. Why, the first I know of it was when I looked at this paper, and I'm not through reading the account of the crime yet.
That's all right, Dr. Trowbridge.
Detective Sergeant Costello answered with a laugh as he entered the dining room.
We don't figure on arresting you, but we'd like to ask you some questions, if you don't mind. This is Professor de Grandin of the Paris Police. He's been doing some work for his department over here. And when this murder broke, he offered the chief his help. We'll be needing it, too. I'm thinking, Professor de Grandin, Dr. Trowbridge.
He waved an introductory hand from one to the other of us. The professor bowed stiffly from the hips, in continental fashion, then extended his hand with a friendly smile. He was a perfect example of the rare French blonde type, rather under medium height, but with a military erectness of carriage which made him look several inches taller than he actually was. His light blue eyes were small and exceedingly deep-set and would have been humorous had it not been for the curious cold directness of their gaze. With his wide mouth, light mustache waxed at the ends in 2 perfectly horizontal points, and those twinkling, stock-taking eyes, he reminded me of an alert tomcat like a cat's, too, was his lithe, noiseless step as he crossed the room to shake hands. "Fier Monsieur Costello, kief you de me approcher, doctor," he said in a pleasant voice, almost devoid of accent. "This must true I am connected with the service de sûreté, but not as a vocation. My principal work is at the University of Paris and Saint-Lazare Hospital. At present I combine my vocation of savant with my vocation of criminologist. You see, why?" I interrupted, grasping his hand. "You are Professor Jules de Grandin, author of Accentuated Evolution." He shrugged deprecatingly. "Yes, I am, he admitted with a smile, but at present, our inquiries lie on another field. You have a patient, one young Monsieur Paul Maitland, is it not? He was it upon last night on the Andover Road." "I have a patient named Paul Maitland," I admitted, "but I don't know where he received his injuries." "Nor do we," he answered with a smile, "but we shall inquire. You will go with us, while we question him, no?" "Why, yes," I acquiesced. I should be looking in on him this morning, anyhow. "And now, Monsieur," Professor de Grandin began when introductions had been completed, "you will please to tell us what happened last night to you, yes?" Paul looked uncomfortably from one of us to the other and swallowed nervously.
"I don't like to think of it,"
he confessed.
"much less talk about it. But here's the truth, believe it or not. I took Gladys home from the club about 11 o'clock, for she had developed a headache. After I'd said goodnight to her, I decided to go home and turn in and had gotten nearly here when I reached in my pocket for a cigarette. My case was gone, and I remembered laying it on a window ledge just before my last dance. The mater gave me that case last birthday, and I didn't want to lose it, so, instead of telephoning the club and asking one of the fellows to slip it in his pocket, like a fool, I decided to drive back for it. You know, or at least Dr. Trowbridge and Sergeant Costello do, the Andover Road dips down in a little valley and curves over by the edge of the golf course between the 8th and 9th holes. I was just in that part of the road nearest the links when I heard a woman scream twice. It really wasn't 2 screams, more like 1.5. For her second cry was shut off almost before it started. I had a gun in my pocket, a little .22 automatic, good thing I did, too, so I yanked it out and drew up at the roadside, leaving my engine running. That was lucky, too, believe me. I ran into the woods, yelling at the top of my voice, and there in the path I saw something dark, like a woman's body, lying. I started toward it when there was a rustling in the trees overhead and, plop, something dropped right into the path in front of me. Gentlemen, I don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't anything human. It wasn't quite as tall as I, but looked about twice as broad, and its hands hung down, clear down to the ground. I yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" and pointed my gun at it, and it didn't answer, just started jumping up and down, bouncing with its feet and hands on the ground at once. I tell you, it gave me the horrors. "Snap out of it," I yelled again, "or I'll blow your head off." Next moment, I was so nervous and excited I didn't really know what I was doing. I let fly with the pistol, right in the thing's face. That came near being my last shot, too. Believe me or not, that thing, whatever it was, reached out, snatched the gun out of my hand and broke it. Yes, sir, snapped that pistol in two with its bare hands as easily as I could break a matchstick. And then it was on me. I felt one of its hands go clear over my shoulder, from breast to back in a single clutch, and it pulled me toward it. It was hairy, so hairy as an ape.
Morbleu, yes? And then, de Grandin murmured eagerly.
Then I lunged out with all my might and kicked it on the shins. It released its grip a second, and I beat it. Ran as I never did on the quarter-mile track, jumped into the car and took off down the road with everything wide open. But I got these gashes in my back and arms before I got into the roadster. He made 3 or 4 grabs for me, and every one of them took the flesh away where his nails raked me. By the time I got home I was almost crazy with fright and pain and loss of blood. I remember kicking and banging on the door and yelling for the folks to open, and then I went out like a light.
The boy paused and regarded us seriously.
"I know you think I'm the biggest liar out of jail,"
he announced.
"but I've been telling you the absolute, honest-to-goodness truth."
Costello looked skeptical, but de Grandin nodded eagerly, affirmatively. "But, of course, you speak truth," he replied. "Now tell me, young monsieur, if you can, dispoilu, s01e05.1, how was it resté?" Paul wrinkled his brow in an effort at remembrance.
"I can't say surely, for it was dark in the woods and I was pretty much excited, but I think he was in evening clothes. Yes, I'd swear to it. I saw his white shirt bosom."
Muttered de Grandin softly. "Everything, a fellow who leap up and down like a jumping jack, or en AIP en isanker, and en evening clot. It is to sink, mes amis."
I'll say it is.
Costello agreed.
What sort of hooch did they have out at our club last night?
Dr. Trowbridge is wanted on the phone. Please.
A maid announced from the door.
You can take it on this one if you wish, sir. It's connected with the main line.
I picked up the instrument from young Maitland's bedside table and called, "Hello, Dr. Trowbridge speaking."
"This is Mrs. Comstock, doctor,"
a voice informed me.
"Your housekeeper told us you were at Mrs. Maitland's. Can you come to my house, please? Mr. Manley, my daughter's fiancé, was hurt last night."
"Hurt last night?" I repeated.
"Yes, out by the country club."
"Very well, I'll be over shortly," I answered, then held out my hand to de Grandin. "Sorry to have to run away," I apologized, "but another man was hurt at the club last night." He replied interrogatively. "That club, it is an unfortunate place. May I accompany you, doctor? This other man, he may tell us something also." "Very well," I agreed, "I'll be pleased to have your company." Young Manley's injury proved to be a gunshot wound inflicted by a small caliber weapon and was located in the left shoulder. He was very reticent concerning its cause, and neither de Grandin nor I felt inclined to inquire too insistently. Mrs. Comstock hovered about the sick room from our entrance until the treatment was concluded. "Nom d'un petit pas," de Grandin muttered as we left the Comstock residence. "It is close midday, that one. Almost, it would seem. Bah, I took that. Let us get to the morgue, cher doctor. You shall drive me there on your motor and tell me what it is you see. Oftentimes, you gentlemen of the general practice, see things which we specialists overlook, because of the mental blunders of our specialty. In the cold, uncharitable light of the city mortuary, we viewed the remains of poor little Sarah Humphreys. As the newspaper had said, she was disfigured by 20 or more wounds, running, for the most part, in converging lines down her shoulders and arms, deeply incised, deep enough to reveal the bone where skin and flesh had been completely shorn through in places. On her throat and neck were 5 distinct livid patches, one some 3 inches in size, roughly square, the other 4 extending in parallel lines almost completely around her neck, terminating in deeply pitted scars, as though the talons of some predatory beast had been sunk into her flesh. But the most terrifying item of the grisly sight was the poor girl's face. Repeated blows had reduced her once pretty features to an empurpled level. Bits of sand and fine gravel still bedded in the cuticle told how her countenance must have been ground into the earth with terrific force. Never, since my days as emergency hospital intern, had I seen so sickening an array of injuries on a single body. "Eh, what do you see, my friend?" the little Frenchman demanded in a raucous whisper. "You think? What? It terrible," I began, but he interrupted impatiently. "But of course, one does not expect the beautiful at the morgue. I ask what you see, not for your aesthetic impressions. Pardieu. If you want to know what interests me most," I answered, "it is those wounds on her shoulder and arms. Except in degree, they are exactly like those which I treated on young Maitland last night." "Ah, yes," de Grandin responded, his little blue eyes dancing with excitement, his cat's whiskers mustache bristling more fiercely than ever. "Name of a little blue man. Begin to make progress. Now." He touched the lividities on the dead girl's throat daintily with the tip of one well-manicured nail. "These marks, do they tell you anything?" I shook my head. "Possibly the bruise left by some sort of garrote," I hazarded. "They are too long and thick for fingerprints. Besides, there's no thumb mark." He laughed mirthlessly. "The mark, do you say? My dear sir, had there been a thumb mark, I should have been all at sea. These marks, they are the stigmata of truth, on the young Monsieur Maitland's story. When were you last at the zoo?" "Eh, at the zoo?" echoed stupidly. "But of course, have you never noted the quadrumana, how they take hold? My dear sir, it would, perhaps, not be too great an exaggeration to say that is the difference between man and monkey. Man and the chimpanzee grasp an object with the fingers, using the thumb as a fulcrum. The gorilla, the orangutan, the gibbon, is a fool, and knows not how to use his thumb. Now see," again he indicated the bruises, "this large patch that represents the heel of the hand, these encircling lines, they are the fingers, these wounds, they are nail print. Name of an all-one-eyed tomcat. It was truth the young Maitland told. It was an IP which accosted him in the bois, an IP in evening cloth. What think you from that, hein?" "God knows," I answered helplessly. "I give up." "Qui, Monsieur le Docteur?" De Grandin lapsed into his native tongue in his earnestness. "Truly, God does know. But do I give up? Me, I am like you're so splendid, Paul Jones, I have but come nasty to fight." He turned abruptly from the dead girl and, seizing my elbow, urged me from the morgue. No more now," he declared. "You have your mission of help to the sick to perform, and I have my work, also, to do. You will take me once more to your charming suburb. I will leave you to your duties, while I pursue mine, and, if the imposition is not too great, I will dwell at your house while on this case. Consent? That'll be fine. Bon." Taxi. "Until tonight, then," he hailed as he leaped agilely into the car. "I shall attend to be at the house before you have, how do you say? It into the straw? Bien. Au revoir, cher ami."